Hello everyone, my name is Tarsis Brito, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow in international relations at the LSE. I recorded this very brief video abstract so that I could introduce to you my new research article in Review of International Studies. The article is titled Between Race and Animality, European Borders, Colonial Dogs, and the Policing of Humanity. The article engages with and contributes to multiple debates within and outside international relations, including critical border and security studies, post and decolonial thought, critical race studies, and animal studies. In particular, the article reflects on the links between race, animality, and coloniality as a way to analyze and better understand contemporary practices of violence at Europe's post-colonial borders. This research article has as its point of departure the increasing use of police dogs to surveil, chase, and attack global south migrants at Europe's border zones, a phenomenon that has become particularly acute since the beginning of the so-called European migrant crisis. With the warrant of Frontex, which publicly advocates for the use of police dogs in border operations, police dogs have been established as a weapon to protect and police European border zones. So the article looks particularly at the Balkans, where canines have been deployed in land pushback operations, that is, when migrants are forcefully pushed to the other side of the border after seeking to cross. In such occasions, migrants are often abandoned with severe dog bites and no medical assistance. So in light of that, the article investigates the colonial and imperial origins behind the use of canines to police and attack racialized bodies. In doing so, it asks the question, what can the weaponization of dogs against racialized people tell us about the links between race, animality, and coloniality? So bringing together the current flourishing literature and post-colonial border studies and incipient domain in animal studies, the article makes two central points. First, the weaponization of dogs to attack racialized migrants and police racialized communities in the global north is not seen here as a mere accident. This phenomenon is seen as part of a much longer colonial history in which dogs are weaponized as tools to protect and reinforce racial and colonial order. As the article shows, this takes us back to central moments in the history of colonial domination and white supremacy, including the exterminations of indigenous populations, the surveillance and persecution of enslaved Black people in the plantations, counterinsurgency movements against rebels, and the policing of Black protesters during the civil rights movement in the United States. Engaging with such historical examples, the manuscript shows a myriad of cases in which dogs were trained and taught by colonial powers to recognize, police, and as gruesome as it may sound, attack and eat racialized bodies, essentially operating as the very jaw and teeth of empire and white supremacy. Treating the use of police dogs today as a colonial legacy, the second part of the article reflects more extensively on the racializing and the humanizing effects of subjecting people to dog bites or the threats thereof. To do so, the article first uncovers the links between the idea of modern humanist and the notion of edibility, or if you will, non-edibility. It shows how the anthropocentric understanding of humans as exceptional has extensively relied on the idea that humans, unlike other animals, are not or should not be seen as edible. Humans can eat animals, and animals can always potentially eat other animals. Human flesh, nevertheless, is continually protected and detached from this food chain. This association between humanus and non-edibility has been a central feature of what it means to be human under colonial modernity. That in mind, the article formulates an original argument that pushes us to think about this historical exposition or submission of racialized bodies to the threat of dog bites as part of what I call a certain politics of edibility. Essentially, the manuscript will argue that the violence associated with the exposition of racialized bodies to dog bites has a unique dehumanizing feature that takes us once again to the connections between humanus, animalis, and edibility. The dog bite, as a haunting presence, acts by producing its racialized targets as essentially edible bodies, not only reinforcing their subhuman status within colonial modernity, but also reiterating their status as disposable and exploitable bodies. That is, bodies that can be exploited, violated, and consumed. In sum, what the article argues is that the systematic process of weaponization of dogs by colonial and white supremacist powers carries often another tool, another feature of dehumanization that essentially consists of denying racialized people, once again, access to Western and modern understandings of humanity. So what does this mean in the context of youth border violence? My point here is that the contemporary racialized use of police dogs by European states with the warrant of projects to police, surveil, and attack migrants at the borders should be seen as another colonial legacy in a border landscape that is profoundly shaped by colonialism, as post-colonial scholars have already argued. On the use of police dogs as a weapon is seen here as another form of racial violence at the border that seeks to reinforce color lines by reaffirming the non or subhuman status of racialized migrants who seek to cross the borders towards the EU territory. By enacting racialized migrants as essentially edible, the use of police dogs operates as another racializing tool that essentially demarcates and secure the lines between Europe's white and human self, vis-a-vis its disposable and essentially subhuman racialized others. In doing so, dogs are made to operate as a proxy for a process of racialization at the borders that essentially produces migrants as disposable bodies, in a process that not only reinforces the physical borders of Europe, but also polices the very borders of humanity. This article has implications for multiple debates in IR, as I've mentioned before. Particularly, I would like to reiterate the contributions to critical border studies, in particular to post-colonial theorizations and analysis of racial violence and dehumanization at the borders. It also contributes to debates within post-colonialism and critical race studies about racialization and in particular the making and policing of racial hierarchies. It also contributes to critical animal studies by integrating anthropocentrism and racism, or if you will, race and animality in an analytical and innovative